In today's podcast, I speak with Paul Jones, the founder of Oriri Marketing, who's an Ecom founder turned agency owner and is making huge waves by generating amazing client results for Ecom brands in the US and the UK. In this episode, we talk about agency life, hustle culture, how to get results for clients, and most importantly, what agency owners like us need to understand in order to get the most out of our businesses. Had an amazing time speaking to him. He's a guy with plenty of insight and experience, and generally somebody that can add a lot of value to anybody who listens. Paul's also a really valued member of my agency partner community, where we connect, collaborate, and grow with the best marketers in the world. Let's get into it. Right, Paul, welcome to the podcast, bro. Let's start with who you are, just for anyone who doesn't know. How would you describe yourself in terms of where you're at right now in life?
Good question. Yeah. It depends, in terms of the business side, like we have a marketing agency and we help e-commerce brands scale, mainly through video-based strategies on social media. On the personal side, I'm just enjoying the growth of the business team more than anything, and the development, growing a business compared to when I first met you and I was doing the dropshipping brands on my own. I was making money, but it's not the same as being able to grow something with a team, with people that you've chosen to work with. And so that's me at the moment. I'm enjoying doing that, yeah.
Let's jump into the dropshipping side of things, because it's something that was on trend, massive. Dropshipping was really popular and it seems to have died down recently. Was that something that you caught onto? Is that why you switched away from the e-com, running your own stores?
Do you know what it is? I wouldn't say it was a trend. It will still work. Everything still works. People will type how to make money online and it'll be agency, dropshipping, Amazon FBA. They all work. I know people that have made all of them work. I made dropshipping work to an extent, but you always think the grass is greener on the other side. So I would hire a marketing agency. I'd look at their costs or my perceived costs. You're doing this and it's all profit. I've got product costs, I've got fulfillment, all of this stuff. And so you make the decision, right, this business model is probably not the best. Let me switch, to find out that the margins aren't always the best anyway with the agency once you've got the team costs anyway. But no, it wasn't really trend-based. I think you've got to know yourself. And so knowing who I am as a person, I really like to work with people. And so the agency side, you're working with people, with the clients, you've got your team as well. And so I just enjoy it more. And I think I recognize that looking at other people, what would make them shy away from creating an agency was what pulled me into making an agency. Dropshipping gets kind of lonely.
So was the grass greener from dropshipping to agency life?
It depends, because sometimes I think, where would I be if I continued to have done that? And it's hard to know. I think, you can look at it from how much money you would make, but I'd say from the point of view of fulfillment and enjoyment and being able to connect with people like you and collaborate, the grass is greener for sure. But that's because that's the type of person I am.
Okay, so depending on your personality is what kind of business model you should go after, yeah? 100%. Right, so let's just talk about agency life for a minute. So in your first year, what was the actions that you took to get going? Like, how did you even switch? Because you had some skills already, right?
Yeah, good question. So in the beginning, it is just volume. It's just hustle. Like, you don't even know what your business looks like. You struggle to describe it to somebody. Somebody will say, what is it that you do? Now you'd be able to give a headline. Okay, we do this for that type of company. When you first start, you're just trying to make a retainer somewhere. And so we'd start with aesthetics clinics, e-commerce brands. We try and work with anybody and everybody. But it was just knocking doors, basically. I used to do door-to-door sales, so I think that helped.
What were you selling?
We were selling... Cancer. No, do you know what it is? It was in Liverpool whilst I was at uni, and I was selling cancer research as something to sign up to. And in Liverpool, people do not believe in cancer research. And so you knock on a door and everybody's saying, well, there's no cure for cancer yet. I'm not signing up to that. Have you seen what the CEO makes? And that is a lot of rejection. And that is what agency life is in the beginning. In year one, it's rejection.
What, so there's no rejection now?
You get used to it. There's more
used to it. So there's still rejection in agency life. It's just you get more used to it and you're more equipped for it.
Yeah. You're more equipped for it, but also there's the ratio's a bit different.
Okay, so It's interesting because I share that background. I was a street fundraiser for the British Red Cross in university. I don't know if you knew that. Where I would stand on the middle of city centre streets in London asking people for £10 direct debits whilst they're just going about their day. So it's mad that we share that background. I didn't know that. Talk to me about what's one of the kind of truths that you've discovered with agency life that no one ever talks about?
The hours. Like there's no way of getting away. You can't get away from how much grit is required and how much time you spend on the agency. Yes, the margins are higher, but with another business model, you make the product. Yes, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it. But in the beginning, I'd say the first 2 years, until you really get over the hump and you've got a team that can kind of speak to that client, run that ad, create that bit of content, you are learning everything. And so if you're getting into this to increase your hourly wage, that's a lie. Like that, the truth is, you work less than minimum wage until you can afford for somebody else to do that job for you.
And how long did that take?
I never have actually run the ads myself for this agency, but then you've got sales, then you've got actually understanding what that package looks like. In the beginning, you sign a client, great, but what does a contract even look like? And there was no ChatGPT until recently. So you're there trying to download somebody's template, take somebody else's logo off it, you put yours on.
Yeah.
And so, I think now we're at a place where I'm not removed completely, but I feel confident. I'm going away at the end of the month and I'm not worrying now, as I did maybe a couple of years ago, about things not being done. Okay, we might not grow, I might not be doing the sales calls. Our clients are going to be looked after.
What are some of the mistakes you made early on? So you said that you were hustling, you were grinding. Beginning of agency life, what were the main mistakes that you made, or one major mistake that you remember?
One major mistake is when, I don't know if everybody else goes through this, but this was how I felt anyway. So you start to make a bit of money, ego gets inflated like this. In fact, I've spoken to you, so I know you've got similar experiences.
Yeah.
But that's a very vulnerable position to be in, because you almost feel, in some ways, not to come across a certain way, but you feel untouchable. This is easy, okay? I sign a client pays me this, we run the ads, they're getting results, great. And we had a couple of big clients. I think we were quite lucky early on where we had 4 clients. Performance fees on 2 of them meant that we were getting paid. Some of our best months were in them early days, but they were very heavily leveraged on a couple of clients. So one of the mistakes was looking at revenue and thinking we're doing well, when actually if we have got that revenue and it's growing because one client's growing, the agency isn't necessarily growing. You might grow from last month to this month in terms of revenue. That client leaves, you've got half of your business. And that happened to us where, we were growing from that point of view. I would just say, okay, we've grown this much, times that by 12. That's where we're going to be in a year. Like that's the forecasting. Yeah. Realistically, those 2 big clients left and we were back at square one, and we've lost our systems to actually get new clients. We weren't, as sophisticated as we are now. That's one of the big mistakes. Now we have a good month. I'm not worried about the revenue. I'm not obsessed with the revenue. I'm more obsessed with, okay, well, how many calls are we booking? How are the client results? Are we moving in the right direction? Even if some of these leave, are we good? And I think that comes with experience, but that was definitely a big mistake.
I can relate. And again, it's something that we try and benchmark is no client should represent over 15% of revenue, because you're so leveraged on that client. And then some clients, if they're paying you big money, they also realize that you're heavily leveraged on them because they know that you're a smaller agency, because we're all small agency owners, right? And yes, you can make amazing money being a small agency owner, but when you become just the predominant, basically in-house team for a particular brand or business who might be paying you loads of money, that has massive risk. The point you made about ego inflation, so what did that result in when your ego inflated? You're making more money than you've probably done with your dropshipping business, and you sold that business, right?
I did.
How much did you sell it for?
Well, I'm not gonna.
Don't flex.
I'm not gonna phrase it as a crazy exit. We got rid of it for a few thousand, like just under 5. Yeah. And really,
is it in your bio?
I used to use it. Let's just say, well, when you've got to be scrappy in the beginning, that's a good way to relate to.
That
brands.
Story was, I just exited from my first ecom brand.
Nothing major, but I was 19. You know how this.
Yeah, that's big, man. Hey, look, it's good.
No, you're right. I mean, I mainly sold it. Like I I knew it was probably worth more than that at the time, but it was costing me money because it was distracting me from the agency. So I just said, look, let's not go through a whole process of you looking at the back end, you going through this. Here's the numbers, top line, take it for this much, take it off my hands. It was a good deal for both sides. So that was like, you know, how that situation came to an end. But in terms of the ego,
At least you can be honest about it.
yeah, I mean, you know what? It's experiences.
Yeah.
Like,
The word exit gets thrown around a lot in business, doesn't it? And it's in many bios on Instagram. You could filter out a whole list of followers by just putting who has the word exit in their bio. And you could probably predict what you're going to see on their profile from having that in there.
Yeah.
So it just makes me laugh at it. Like, it's funny because, you know, you could exit for £1. And like, you know, there's that story about that guy, Joseph Valente. He sold his business for £1. It's still an exit at the end of the day. It was still something that was an asset that somebody wanted to buy, even if it wasn't making money, right? Back to the ego question. So what does a inflated ego look like for Paul Jones?
So
What does he do?
I think
How old were you?
I was maybe 21, 22. I'd say there was maybe 2 years. 22 is probably the average age of that period.
Yeah.
It wasn't rented Lambos. Like, I know people have that phase. For me, it wasn't that. And well, I suppose, okay, so we made a massive performance fee. We got paid 20K in 1 month, which was great, right? For me at that age, never seen that money. It went straight into my deposit on a Range Rover Sport because I thought that was the priority. And so that's one example.
Is that the same Range Rover Sport you're driving now?
It's the same.
How old are you now?
I'm 26.
Oh, okay. So that's, at least you kept it.
Yeah. I kept it. Probably got another year on it. But it was less external and it was more me thinking like, you know, I could buy that. I could do this.
Hold on, did you put the whole 20 Gs into the Range?
I put the whole 20 Gs into the Range, mate. I thought
that is a 22-year-old decision for sure.
My thought process was, at the time I had a job, and so I was banking the money, which is a privilege to be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, me now would have thought like, let's invest it, let's reinvest it into growth of the business. I thought then, well, I've gone this whole period, I've not taken any money out, so this can be my salary if you like.
Yeah.
Put it into the car. Did that.
Makes
you know
sense.
what? I don't
Makes sense,
regret
man.
it. I don't regret it. You can validate and justify anything that you want to do, really. But yeah, I don't actually regret it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that was a small period of my life where I'm not buying things because I think money is just going to keep coming and coming and coming.
Yes.
Being a bit more reserved and spending the excess if you want to, that's different.
Yeah. How long did that new car feeling last for you when you got it? Because it's an achievement, right? 22 years old, rolling around in a big boy Range. I'm sure you wanted to turn up at some people's houses and you know, see some old family members just to let them know how you're doing without saying anything, right?
So just pulling up. No, do you know what? I think now sometimes I drive it and I'm still grateful, but it's a bit of a different feeling. It's not the new car feeling. And that's why I say I don't regret it, because it is achievement. You know, you work so hard and you do so many hours. And it's not like Forex trading. It's not passive in any way, like I say. So it's good to be able to spend that money in some ways. But that new car feeling where you feel like, you know, you almost can't believe it, that lasted around probably around 2 months.
Oh, okay. That's good. At least you got 2 months out of it.
2 months, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I remember when I went from a Peugeot 206 to a Mercedes C-Class. And that was a big jump for me. And that C-Class... The Peugeot was 400 quid. The C-Class was 10 grand or 13 grand at the time. And that was like, whoa. And I'll never forget, I didn't know anything about cars because I've never been in the market to buy cars. And I went to the gym and I told someone, oh yeah, I just got a new car. You know what I mean? Just, you know, I'm excited, whatever. And I was like, yeah, what have you got? I was like, oh, I've got the C250. And he's like, oh yeah, the new shape. And I was like, what? And he's like, the new shape that just come out this year. I was like, I didn't know there's a new shape. And then I looked at the new shape and the whole car is now like outdated and 10 years older than it actually is. You know what I mean? And I was gutted. And that car for me, I don't think it's about the car or whatever the shiny object might be for us as agency owners or business owners. It's more about the jump in it and the kind of reward for having some success, right? And that's what it was for me. Right, let's talk about client results. So you guys specialize in ecom. How do you get clients results, man, in the modern day, 2025? How do you, as an e-com store, actually generate profitable results from online advertising?
You've got to control the variables. Like that is, there's no other way around it. You know, back when I first started, I could take your product image or the video that you give me, and we could run that as an ad, stick an offer on it, and that's going to get some sales. That doesn't work anymore. You know, it's too sophisticated now. If we think about like TV ads and how much actually goes into the psychology behind that, it's becoming similar with social media, where you can't just send products to an influencer or creator and say, send us a video testimonial. You know, UGC used to be the thing that everybody raved about. I think that term gets thrown around a lot now. We still use user-generated content, but it's a little bit different. You know, we're thinking of the psychology. What is it that we have to say to somebody to get them to want to click on a button with the intent to buy? And that's evolved to be something that's a lot deeper than just, here are our benefits, here are the key features. But instead now we're looking in places like, you know, Reddit forums, where a customer's speaking honestly amongst themselves. And that feedback there, those real deep pain points, that's what's going to get somebody to convert if you relate to that. So instead of, you know, we work with a lot of mushroom coffee brands, and instead of saying this is going to reduce jitters or eliminate brain fog, these are kind of the marketing terminologies. When you ask somebody what does their product do, they'll throw these things around. I guarantee you there's no customer out there that thinks, I want something that's going to reduce my jitters. And so you need to understand.
Shout out Harry Hornsey.
Yeah, shout out.
Mr. Jitters himself.
Mr. Jitters,
He's gonna kill me for saying that on the pod.
But that's what you need, though. You need to understand the customer. You know, you can't just know how to run ads anymore in the technical sense. You can't hire a media buyer from a third world country. You know, there are people there that can do well and get results. But just because you know how to set up a campaign doesn't mean you know how to get sales.
The gap's closed, hasn't it? From when I started, you know, in 2016, no one knew what Facebook ads were. So that meant there was a big skills gap in terms of what can this person do for me versus what I can do for myself. And I've seen it just get closer and closer, where now people are like, let's take it in-house, or let's learn how to do it ourselves as the business owners and founders. And I agree with you to the extent where it's not just more sophisticated, but there's a lot more competition now as well. Do you feel like social media ads can work for every brand in terms of e-commerce stores? It's the only place for them to really get scalable traffic, right? Unless they're going viral on social media. Do you still feel like every brand should be running ads if they've got an e-com store?
I do, yeah. I mean, for some it's easier than others, don't get me wrong. If we had like a bottle of water, that's a harder product to sell. But there is something about that. There's an angle there somewhere that's going to make you want to buy that product above the other waters out there. Liquid Death is an example of that. You probably know that brand.
Yeah.
They've smashed the marketing, and realistically, it's just water, right? And there's nothing.
Realistically, it's just water.
It is though. You know, it's the story behind it is what they're selling. For some brands, it's easy. The product will sell themselves. Like if it's something that isn't as saturated, great. It's novel. Somebody will see that, they'll buy. Other products, you have to be a bit more creative. But if you're not running ads, you need to be running ads, 100%.
One of the things you said earlier was you work with everybody and anybody as an agency. So multiple niches, multiple industries in terms of product lines. Do you think that's been an advantage or a disadvantage?
We don't. So we used to. We used to work with anybody and everybody. Now we've really focused. Obviously within e-commerce, our main field or industry that we've got expertise is in the health and wellness space. And we just find that starts to compound. You know, when you get one brand, and to answer your question, I think it is an advantage because you know the scripts for one, and you know what angles work for one. The product might be different, but you already understand the customer and how to be persuasive in your marketing. And so you're not having to go back to the drawing board, learn another industry. It is doable. We do have some clients that edge outside of health and wellness. But I think really focusing on a specific area has been key.
Yeah. Talk to me about red flags then. So clients you won't take on. Okay. What kind of red flags do you identify in your agency? Like when you're selling your products, your services, right? When you see a client come in and they're like, okay, 50-50 on whether they qualify, what disqualifies clients from you working with them?
Good question. I feel like it's a very topical, relevant question to a few conversations that I've had recently. I think it's
Like the one we just had off camera.
like the one that we had off camera. Yeah, you know who we're talking
No
about.
names.
No names. We won't go into that specifically. Yeah, I mean, the biggest red flag is if you're losing money and you've already worked with this agency and that agency and you've always lost money. Yes, we can come and we can improve your performance. And my mindset used to be, probably going back to the ego situation and part of the conversation that we had, I used to think, okay, you've lost money with these agencies, but they're not Oriri Marketing. And so you work with us, we're going to transform the results. You want a 2-3x, no problem. We're going to scale you there. That's fine. Now I realize that even if you make a bad situation better, it's still not a great situation. And so when we speak to brands, we're really trying to understand their potential, and previous experience gives us that. You know, if somebody's already making money successfully without ads, brilliant. You know, we can catapult that.
You're telling me about the ones you would work with. I want to know, what are the red flags that you wouldn't work with?
We won't work with people that don't yet have a business that is validated. So we're not going to make your business for you. Okay, we're going to scale you. We're going to grow your business. But if you're coming to me with an idea and you're coming to me with a product that you've seen and you've got made because you've seen an opportunity over there, go and validate your product first. You know, we're specialists in one area, and that's growth. But we don't want to have to validate your product, help you with establishing your pricing model. The red flags are just, it really comes down to, do you have a product that people want to buy? And until you know that, it's probably not a great fit.
But wouldn't the argument from brands be, but hey, aren't you there to actually show us that there's customers for our brand? Isn't that why we need the distribution through skilled hands to get that result in the first place?
It goes back to that question, yeah, chicken and the egg situation, but there are other agencies that would want to do that. When we first started, potentially that would be the type of client that we'd take on. Now we're fortunate to be in a position where people want to work with us. You know, we've already got the case studies, we've got the results. And so for our team to implement our framework and the way that we work as well, it's very hands-on. You know, we're not just passing you off to a junior account manager, but instead, when you work with us, you actually get a team. And we're not just saying that. So you'll get into the group chat and you'll be there with a lead creative strategist. You know, you can speak directly to the CMO about exactly what's happening on your account. And so for all of this effort and energy that we put in, we really want to focus on making a difference. And I think if you're a startup brand that have got no sales so far, go and work with maybe a smaller agency that can help you 0 to 1. And then once you have that validation, come to us and we'll be able to take you to that next level.
That's a really good way of putting it. I like that a lot. Depends where you're at in your agency journey and what type of businesses you serve. Is it startups or is it scale-ups? And validating the product, pricing points, it can become really frustrating when you don't have set in stone prices that you know aren't going to be resisted by the market because they've been proven to sell at that price point. And one of the things that always gets me is when a client's like, yeah, I've got this product. It's just like these guys and they're doing 2 million a year. So we should be able to do at least half of that, right?
You know what? That is a red flag. You know, when somebody just really doesn't understand how difficult it's going to be. And I'm not saying it's going to be, you know, extremely difficult or impossible. But when they're saying, you know, we haven't sold anything yet, but in 6 months, we're going to be doing 100K a month. I've seen Athletic Greens over here and I've seen the bigger brands over there and our product's better. And straight away, they're already, you know, they're a bit naive, and you need a bit of naivety when you're first starting a business. But they're naive in the sense that I think it would harm you because you're underestimating actually how difficult it's going to be. And for us, that is a bit of a red flag. And
expectation management is hard.
Yeah, if you're not doing 100K a month in 30 days, they're going to look at you as the problem.
Yeah.
When realistically, the problem is the business at that point in time.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned earlier was hustle, right? In that first 2 years, you're just hustling. Your hourly rate is through the basement. You know, you said you had a job as well at the time. So
yeah,
you're obviously comparing that. You're doing a lot more work for a lot less pay in that context. But hustle culture, you know, it's kind of got a bad name. You know, it used to be all about hustle, grind. You know, Gary Vee was famous for saying, you know, eat pot noodles and maybe not pot noodles, ramen noodles in America. And sleep on the floor, and if you go to work and you see your family after they go to sleep, grind it out. For agency owners, is hustle culture toxic or necessary?
Absolutely required. You know, if you think that this can be anything other than that, especially where I started, and I think I know your story, so I know you didn't go to university to do a marketing degree, did you?
Not a marketing
Not
degree,
a
but I
marketing
did
degree.
get a degree. Let's get
Right.
that record straight.
Okay, I won't ask you about the qualifications, things like that.
It was sound design.
Unless you got a first
It
and you
was,
wanted to.
it was sound design. It was connecting up these wires that I
Yeah.
have literally no interest in doing
Well,
anymore.
it helped this morning, didn't it? So yeah, not waiting.
Yeah. I adjusted a podcast mic stand.
Yeah,
Got me far, man. 3 years.
100%. But with you not really knowing much, because most people get into it because they want to make money, and you being in that situation, you're likely to not have already worked for a successful marketing agency. Maybe if you do, you've got a head start. I can't really comment on how easy or difficult that would be, but
Let me just ask you a question there.
yeah.
Do you think that agency owners should go and work in a bigger agency before they start their own as an advantage?
I don't even think you should start in a bigger agency. I think you should just work for an agency. It could be a 3-man agency. It can be a small team. But I think just understanding how it works and what the service looks like is great. There's so many mistakes that we made at the start just because we'd sign a client and it's all at the start about signing a client. And then you sign them. You don't know to put that person through an onboarding process. You don't know how to set expectations. You don't know to put them in a Slack channel so that they can communicate with the team. Or you don't even have a team at that point. So I think, going back to the question...
You can't even afford Slack.
yeah, we was using WhatsApp back then, until recently, actually. But yeah, you need to work hard. You need to. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance because other people are working harder than you, and it's a level playing field. To learn how to run ads, it's actually not the most complicated thing in the world if you have the time and blood, sweat, and tears you're willing to put into it. But if you're not willing to put that into it, then you're going to go nowhere. So you need that.
So it's a necessary evil, that hustle, that grind, that non-stop sleeping, trying to get to bed at 12 o'clock at night and all you're still thinking about is your task list.
You've got to love it as well, mate. Like, it's a necessary evil, but I wouldn't even say that. You've got to be obsessed. And like, I wasn't setting my alarm, counting my days, thinking I need to do 10, 11, 12, 13 hours today. It's like, I want to do this. I'm working for myself now. This is exciting. Otherwise, you're going to do it and you're going to drop off. If somebody else finds it interesting and you don't, you've already lost the game.
So what do you love about it?
Yeah, well, good question.
Don't think too hard about this one. What do you love about being an agency owner?
Do you know what? The freedom number one, and you can craft your own business completely. You control how you're perceived. If you want to be a serious agency, you go be a serious agency. For us, we're not serious. I'm going to send an email and I'm going to jump on a call and I'm going to go, hello, sir, and all this kind of thing. Like, we don't need to be corporate. I've had a corporate job. I don't want anything to be corporate in this business. So we choose who we work with. We choose how we interact. We have quarterly meetups, and most of that is just about having a good time, going for a few drinks and making sure the team's connected. Whereas if you work for somebody else, or if you design a product and you just sell the product, you have less control over who your customer is. You might think it's somebody, and then actually there's a whole subset of people that end up buying it. And yeah, you don't control that as much. So I like being able to build the business that you want to create.
That's a really good take on it. I think what's the deeper reason as to why you need that independence? Why can't you just be happy working a 9 to 5, working in someone else's agency? You've got a lot of value to bring. You'd be a high earner in a big agency, closing, big brand deals for, an agency with a bigger track record. And I'm interested to know why. Why do you need to be independent? Why do you need to make your own choices? Why can't you just be happy and just clock in, clock out?
What's the why behind the why behind the why? It depends how deep you want to go into the layers of the why. It started, I think, as you do this for a bit longer, you go deeper and trying to understand why has everybody else stopped at this point, and why are you still so obsessed to keep growing even though you've reached your initial goal. I just think, one, the freedom's really important, because just who I am as a person. I don't like being told what to do. If it aligns with how I think it should be done, then great. But when I've had jobs in the past, I really wanted to make a change. Look, we've got this area, we can make this more efficient. And then we have a meeting about a meeting, to have another meeting about another meeting. I hate that. Like that just makes my blood boil. That's so, it's just not the way that I like to operate. But I think in the like deeper sense, what's the why? I think owning a business and being in control and being independent gives you an element of confidence that you just won't get anywhere else. You know, you achieve things and it's directly a result of how much effort that you've put in. And I think there's no other way to build your confidence than to go to the gym and build, resilience in that way. And second to that, I think it's building a business, because it's obviously extremely difficult.
This podcast is sponsored by the Start and Scale Agency Partnership, which is all about bringing the best marketers together to connect, collaborate, and grow, getting their clients amazing results, and growing their businesses and agencies together. If you are an agency owner or marketer looking to scale this year, click the link in the description box below to find out more about how we are bringing the best marketers together to connect, collaborate, and grow in 2025. You've moved around a lot, right? I remember you were telling me your story, and I think you spent some time in Egypt as a youngster, but you weren't really in the particular place for particularly long, apart from, Egypt, UK, and is there anywhere else that you spent time?
How long have you got?
Crack on, bro. It's open mic session.
Yeah, we moved around a bit. I mean, our base was Egypt, so I went to high school in Egypt. That's the one that I do remember the most. But I was born in the Philippines. Don't really remember that too much. My family's still in the Philippines. From there, we went to Malaysia. Then we went to I can't remember now.
Doesn't even know where he's Get the passport out, check the stamps.
Taiwan, that's it. So Malaysia, Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, came back to the UK, then went to Egypt, and that's the base of where I grew up for 6 years.
Up to what age?
High school. So from year 7 in the UK, from year 6, end of year 6 to year 11.
Yeah. And do you think that's been something that's helped you in business? Or do you think that it might be something that's affected you in other ways?
It has 100% helped me.
Do you feel like, did you come from money?
Definitely didn't come from money.
It doesn't sound like it.
No, it didn't go. Well, we weren't poor, we weren't rich. We just a normal house in the UK, normal family in the UK.
Yeah.
Went from being normal here to being probably one of the poorer kids in Egypt, because you go to this school and you're living with these guys. But yeah, we didn't struggle in that sense. There's no story of how we couldn't afford to eat, but definitely
no stories about impoverished upbringing.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it, don't you? I mean,
it's most entrepreneur story. Yeah?
It is most entrepreneur story, but yeah, to answer your question, definitely didn't come from money, and I think, to be honest, that's probably an advantage.
Okay, cool. What's the main thing when it comes to agency life that a client's asked for, and you're just like, man, we need to get out of this situation? What's the wildest thing a client's asked you guys for?
The wildest? I don't even. Let me think. Nothing too wild comes to mind. You obviously get everybody that doesn't have a successful business almost wants to give it to you so that they can grow it. It's nothing too wild.
What does that look like?
It looks like, come meet me, take a percentage of my business. This is going to go big places. We've got this. It's always conversations, right? It's never, I've got this investment, but it's, I've got this conversation with this person. And you've just got to really allow that to fall on deaf ears, because people will try and give you a part of their business if they think it's not worth very much. But when they know they're onto something, they're going to hoard that. They don't want you to have a piece of that.
Yeah. I had someone that I worked with that was starting their agency years ago, and they dropped a message to say, hey, I've just done my first deal, buzzing, excited, can't wait. And I was like, oh, what is it? So like, what's the numbers? What's the deliverables? And he was like, it's a champagne brand. They're a startup, and I've not taken any upfront fee, but he's given me 50% of the company. And I was like, yeah. What's the existing sales? Nothing.
Yeah.
How many units have they got in stock? Nothing. So there's an idea, it's a concept, right? And that was a big mistake. And a lot of this happens in the agency space, because when you really got nothing to do, right? You're chasing your first deals, or you're trying to just get things going off the ground. You get attracted or distracted from the path that you're on, because you basically just want to start conceptualizing and building campaigns and getting results. I definitely agree, man. You got to watch out, because what's what's half of zero? Zero. It's a
Honestly,
dangerous space.
you get so many of those deals at the start.
Talk to me about marketers that you've learned from, excluding myself, of course. Who do you follow online? Like, who are the people that you've actually taken inspiration from? All names go, by the way. I know we've got our agency partnership, yeah. I'm all about encouragement and bringing up the industry, right? So who have you followed? Who have you learned from? Who have you taken inspiration from?
It comes in phases. I think if you started the agency at the same time where I started it, you would be lying if you said you didn't follow Iman Gadzhi or Jordan Platt, and those were the two that you got you inspired in the model in the first place. But it definitely goes through phases. I had a time where I would obsess over Charlie Morgan's videos because I felt they were a bit more in depth, and I had already signed my first couple of clients. So it does definitely evolve. I'd say now the person who I watch the most content of is a guy in the US called Eddie Malouf. I just think in terms of the numbers that he's doing,
Marketing, right?
bad marketing,
They're unbelievable.
He thinks big, mate, and it's good because it shows you what's possible. It's in your lane. It's the same industry.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to look at the person that's just ahead of you and keep your ambitions pretty small and think, okay, well, we can grow an extra 10%. But when you see what he's done, it's like, right, okay, that's possible. Let's work towards that. And his content's A1, mate. It's really good.
No, big shout out to them. They're unbelievable. And everyone that you just mentioned, I feel like, I've collaborated with Jordan back in the day. We did some events together that went really well. We did like some one-off joint programs, which went really well. We ended up going to America and hiring out a theater in Brooklyn.
Okay.
And we filled, this is how wild the ambition. This is when you think, what were we thinking? But we had some really successful events in London, and we were like, why don't we do this? No, not we. I was like, yo, Jay, we need to go take this bigger. We need to make a bigger headline, New York City, right? And he was resistant to it, actually. I convinced Jordan Platten to do this event, really. And we went there, we filled the room, had about 200 people in there. And from that perspective, it was a massive success. But from a sales perspective, it didn't hit the targets at all, because it's a new market. We don't have anywhere near the audience in America, New York, than we had here. And man, shout out to Jordan, because the he's a serious operator still. You know what I mean? But I think it's interesting how you mentioned different phases, because what you do when you start isn't what you do when you scale. And even just to maintain and to carry on and to keep numbers coming in, because retention is the number one thing here. If you can't get results, and it takes so much to get to a place where you even get the chance to deliver results, right? So it can also become second priority, where you're so focused on sales and marketing that the clients don't get the attention they need, because you're constantly trying to build that client list and just grow and grow and grow. One of the things you said there is about Eddie Malouf is, that he shows you what's possible, right? Scaling an agency, being incredible at building his own brand as well. Content strategy is unbelievable. Is that why you prefer to work with US clients?
I think we don't prefer to work with US clients. It kind of just has happened.
Right.
You get one good result for one client in the US and they tell somebody else about it, and they'll see that on the website, and then another US brand will want to work with you. We do have UK clients. I'd say it's pretty similar. What works in the UK, I know sometimes I speak to founders or brands and they have a bit of a negative belief. Okay, well, that is working in the US, it's not going to work in the UK, or vice versa. There are slight differences, but realistically, whatever is going to grow your business is going to work in both markets. So no, we don't prefer either one or
What would you
the
say
other.
the difference is between your UK and US clients in general over the last however many years?
Well, I'll tell you one difference. It's not even in terms of like the results or the service, but people in the UK hate to be sold to. Like, as soon as they think that this is a sales call, it's like, no, I'm not making a decision here. Whereas in the US, like, sometimes I'll pitch and they go, that was a really good pitch. Well done. Like, that was great. I enjoyed that. Very thorough. They appreciate the time. In the UK, it's like, if I get you to buy something, it's almost as if I've got one up on you, and they don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
So everyone's very standoffish and quite probably negative in their approach. You know, they're looking at the downside instead of the upside. So that's a big difference. And I'd say generally, I think a lot of the US brands, maybe it's just the ones that we attract versus the UK brands, but they tend to be a bit more ambitious. You know, we've got this goal and we're here now and we want to scale as soon as we physically can. What's required to get there? Whereas when I speak to UK brands, and their approach generally is a bit closer towards how little do I have to spend to be able to get this result? And they're looking at it from the other side of the telescope. Not what does it take to get the goal, but how little can I spend? And I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's better to be the other way around.
I agree. The US obviously is a lot more optimistic, sometimes blindly optimistic, but as an agency, it can help because they're looking at the upside more than the downside, and they want to work with you because of what's possible, even when sometimes it may not be that possible. But 100% agree with the difference in the markets. You said something there when they applaud your pitch, when you're selling social media services, and then they turn around and say, hey, great pitch. How does that make you feel? Is that a compliment?
It's a compliment, man. Yeah, it's genuine. It feels good because you can know at that point, you know, you're a bit different, right? If they've had all of these, and going back to like what I said before about not being as corporate, that helps. It's refreshing. So it's a bit of validation to know that we're different, and being different's good. We don't want to sit there with a pitch deck and, you know, Microsoft PowerPoint and just going through all of the different slides talking about us. But instead, we treat it more of a consultation call. It makes it easier. It's a conversation like this. So when they enjoy it, it's good because it means that I know we're doing something right. We're doing something different, and we're not just being boring.
Yeah. So from what I understand, you've sold multiple six figures in social media marketing sales. How do you get a sale and a conversion on a call when you're selling social media services?
You have to know what they think is required for them to get the result. And not to say that that trumps what you think, but you can go in there with, you need this, you need to do that. If they think one thing and it's the opposite of what you think, you're going to struggle to get there. Whereas if I know their goals, right, I'll try and understand, you're here, you want to get there. They might think it's this way. I can try and help them understand what that looks like, but really just finding a way to meet in the middle. Okay, you think it's going to be to do with image ads, let's say. And just for example, let's say I know for this type of business, it's likely to be videos. We talk about how we're going to use part of their strategy and our strategy, so it feels like a joint collaboration instead of just getting on the call and saying, look, you need this, you need that. Let's throw the kitchen sink at you.
Yeah.
Because they are going to buy what they think they need more than what you think they need.
I'll be interested to know, how many calls in your experience does it take to actually sign up and get a contract and transaction done with social media clients?
Now?
Yeah.
Or before?
Now?
Now, we're talking 1 in 3, 1 in 4 have qualified.
No, I'm not talking about conversion rate. I'm talking about how many calls. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't phrase that right. How many calls with one individual prospect who's qualified to work with you does it take for you to sign a deal? Was it 1 call closes, 2 call closes?
Got it. You know what?
What's the reality of it?
The reality, I think it's different for the industry. Like when I did aesthetics clinics when we first started, I could have signed a deal over the phone because it's less sophisticated and we're talking usually about less money.
Yeah.
When you're working with bigger brands, they can't make the decision on the call. Mm-hmm. The more you try and use some of these gimmicky sales tactics.
Like what? What's a gimmicky sales tactic?
What's your why? Okay. But why do you want to make that much money? Or they tell you your goal and you're trying to understand their deep-rooted why, but in reality, they've already reached a certain level of success where they've moved away from that pain. You know, when you're selling to smaller brands, okay, you understand they want to feed their children or whatever it is.
Yeah,
they're past that now. They're not in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
You pushing them in that direction is just going to look desperate.
It's just dark.
It's dark,
It's just dumb.
It doesn't work either.
Especially in the UK. When you start digging deeper, the reality is asking somebody their why or trying to hook them in onto some serious scarcity and pain points, it basically pushes someone away because at the end of the day, they know what you're doing. And the pain points also have no real impact on the result you're going to get them. Why do you need to know what my why is and what I'm going to do with the profit if all you're doing is running my Facebook ads and creating me some videos? Like, why are we getting into that subject? But I feel like a lot of the sales tactics that come out of the States that might work better in the States is because of the difference in the audience that you already discussed.
100%. And the bigger brands, like you have to stay on them. I always book a call from a call. You need to make sure that you do that. But it might take 2, it might take 3. You know, we've had times where it might take 4 or 5 calls. It's worth it for the bigger brands. They genuinely have to have a meeting and discuss it. And so don't push them, because all you do is alienate yourself, and they'll just feel like another number.
Yeah.
Instead, be helpful, set tangible next steps, and however long it takes, it will take. It's probably on average around 2 or 3 calls.
Amazing. Let's say you've had a great client, they've been working with you, and then you get the case study, you go get another client in the industry, and then you figure out that they're pretty toxic, right? Firstly, what does a toxic client look like for you?
A toxic client is one that takes way more of your time than any of your other clients. And you can't measure that. That's the danger, right? Like, we love money. We're business owners. Like, let's just be real. You're in this mainly to make money. That's your initial why, at least. And you see that, and it's tempting. And I've not by any means mastered this, and I think the team would definitely agree. But a red flag is when you're spending so much time not only working on a client, but just answering messages and discussing what to do on next steps. That's a red flag. I'll give you another red flag, and hopefully this person doesn't watch this because they're still a client. Another red flag is when you're going into the ad account and you're changing things because you think you know best. You know, we've had so many instances where we've got a top performing ad. It's been great for the last 90 days. Haven't got a sale this morning, I'm going to turn it off. And it's like, why have you gone and done that?
Interfering with campaigns is a massive red flag. Like, why are you hiring an agency to take over your marketing, increase your sales, and then compromising what they're doing based on a short amount of data? And that's the thing. They'll look at it on the timeline of a week or even a day in this circumstance, turn it off, and then you lose all of that optimization. You lose all of that data that's accrued under the purchases for that ad. So 100%. How do you get rid of a toxic client then? So let's say they seem to be the bee's knees when they came in. You sold them. They paid the fee you asked for. The product looks good. Everything's A1. Then you discover that they're drilling your time out. They're interfering with campaigns. They're trying to steal your staff members. How do you get rid of a toxic client?
Trying to steal your staff members. Luckily, not had that yet. I know you have.
Staff ain't good enough. Shout out the Oriri team. I know you guys are amazing.
They know they're A1, A-team for sure. But in terms of like ending that situation, you just got to be honest. Like, number one is to be honest. But to be honest, a lot of the time that just comes to an end naturally because they feel it as well. If they're trying to micromanage you, chances are they're not 100% satisfied. It's not always performance. Maybe they want something from you that you can't give. You know, we're not a one-man agency. We don't have just that one client. Maybe they need somebody in-house. And maybe if that is the situation, they feel that as well. And so just being honest with them. Usually, I mean, it's been rare. In fact, we haven't had it where we've said this isn't a good fit and the other person hasn't agreed. They'll feel that as well.
So you just have an honest and open conversation.
Be honest, man. Yeah.
But what if they're like, nah, I love you guys. I think you guys are the best thing that's ever happened. I've been with 3 other agencies and they all sacked me off, but you guys are keeping me on.
That's the red button, mate. Yeah.
But how do you do it without destroying a relationship?
No, I'm joking. To be honest, if
eject,
block airplane
just
mode.
remove yourself from everything and just say nothing.
Yeah, the best way is if they are adamant that they want to still work with you, then you just have to set the rules. Okay, so you can work with us, but look, here's how we operate. We'll communicate through this channel. Don't message this person on that chat and this person on this different chat and have different side conversations. And we catch up and we update you weekly. And obviously, if you have a question, ask us. But we can't be spending our whole day texting you back because you want an update from what's happened today versus yesterday, or this hour versus, the hour just before. So, yeah, I think you set the rules, and as long as they agree to that, you can transform that relationship. But most often than not, if they don't feel like we think they're a good fit, they're not going to feel that either.
Yeah. So look, you're a successful marketing agency owner. You've had success in Ecom before. You mentioned a lot of other names that you've taken inspiration from when it comes to your development as a marketer, as a business owner. So what was it about the agency partnership? Because I actually want to know this from the horse's mouth, if you like. What was it about the agency partnership that made you actually join our community and obviously work with myself?
Keyword being partnership. You know, I remember when we jumped on that call and you was walking around on your treadmill.
My treadmill just here still. I'm back on it, 2 days in.
2025, new year, new you. No, but it really felt like that. You know, I have been in situations or programs in the past where the content's great. You know, you can watch the videos and you can learn, but I feel like we are past that point now. And this has now evolved to need, instead of just the knowledge, we need those relationships. You know, we have certain services that we don't do. Maybe somebody else offers those, or we might have a strength that is somebody's weakness and vice versa. So for example, like we didn't use AI as much as I thought we should. And having gone to the last meetup and speaking to some of the guys there, they're using AI way more than us, or the way that they communicate with clients is more efficient. And so, can you send me that template? Is there a way that we can go through that? You're struggling to get clients. I can bring this to the table. Let me show you how we do this. And so for me, it's been that. It's the people and being able to speak directly, contextually about your situation, not just watch
I think that's
series of videos.
That's a big take, because for me, our mission is to bring the best marketers together. And I know that's what I told you on the call. And I'm glad that you've obviously seen the value in the community. We're not trying to just bring startups and trying to convince people to start a social media marketing agency. We're actually trying to bring together the best marketers to connect, collaborate, and grow. Because for me, what I've experienced in programs and what I've seen as well is the only person making money is the mentor, right? So everyone's making money in their own businesses, but the mentor and the program is a one-way transaction. And the thing that really got to me is when I started running events, and a lot of our mentees, or students is what we called them at the time, started meeting each other. They might have deals to be done together. And the initial knee-jerk reaction was, wow, that's powerful. How do I tie myself into that, right? Like, we should be leveraging this relationship equity that we're putting together. But in reality, there's no way we could be a part of every single deal that can happen out there. Who has the resource, right? So for me, seeing the amount of collaboration in the group is the biggest thing right now, where everybody in the agency partnership should be making money together from working with clients and getting great results in their specialist areas. And that thing you said about multi-service, like, we all are specialists in maybe 1 to 3 services max we can nail day in, day out, right? But when there becomes an opportunity for something else, like an additional service that we're not specialists, but we still can probably do, how much more powerful is that for the clients if we bring in another agency who we know has just killed it for 3 brands in that exact niche? That's super, super important for me. When you're speaking about self-development, look, you said you go gym, right? You obviously go quite often. You've obviously got the young man under 30 testosterone still working in your favor.
It's the supplements, mate. It's the clients that we've got.
Talk to me about mindset. So you're going gym. You're still working hard, obviously, in the office. You're not scraping any hours. How does your routine look as an agency owner? What's the reality of it? Because you guys are doing serious numbers. I won't make you put the number out there, obviously, but Paul's doing great numbers. Everyone knows. Everyone's seen the case studies. You go to your website, you can see everything that you guys have done. What does the routine of somebody doing those great numbers look like?
It changes depending on my priorities. I feel like there's been a shift. Everyone used to be obsessed with the morning routine, and then they've kind of gone the other way now, where Alex Hormozi talks about you need to wake up and get straight on the laptop, otherwise you're lazy. I still really value that morning routine. I notice it massively. So for me, it's wake up around 6. First thing I'll do is 10-minute yoga, and then I'll go and do 10 minutes of meditation. Then I'll do a bit of work, and then I'll go for a quick walk, and then I'll just get straight to it. So I want to make sure I do some work before, we get to the later hours of the day, and we don't just spend the whole morning going to the gym and that kind of thing. And then I usually go to the gym to break up the day. The priority at the moment, it's not fitness, it's the business. So whatever is my priority will be done in the morning after my yoga and meditation.
What does 10-minute yoga look like, bro? What's 10-minute yoga?
It's intense, man. Well, if you could see some of the poses are quite funny to see, but Do you know what? It's just stretching. You know, I call it yoga, but it's stretching.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to the gym and working out all of this time, the amount of days I've woken up and just felt stiff, this helps to get rid of that. So it's nothing major, it's nothing too intense, but it's just stretching and, you know, making sure you start the day off with some movement.
Right. What does the future look like for you? Are you happy at the scale you guys are at? Are you aggressively trying to grow? Because look, I always say this, bigger isn't always better, right? And I've had that experience myself. You know, operationally, things can become strained, relationships change, your role in the marketing agency changes. What does the future look like for you and your agency? Like, what is that North Star?
The vision is very clear. So this will be the last year where we are just an agency. I told my partner this the other day and she was like, oh no, not again, not another business. But honestly, genuinely, like
shout out all the partners of agency owners who suffer in the shadows, man.
Yes, for sure.
Every day a new idea at the dinner table. They're sick of it after, well, I've been with my partner. We've been together like 13 years and she's been with me through it all, the business. She when she first met me, I was a uni student, so it was music. And then it was basketball. Well, it was basketball and music. And then it was business. And then it's this business, that business. It's funny to hear that.
That obsession's got to go somewhere though, right? Like if it's not business, it's sport. If it's not sport, it's probably video games as a kid. So there's an element of that. But for us, the vision is we're building this agency we're focusing on the team. So we want at the end of this year to have the team that is the most capable of growing e-commerce brands. And then in 2026 and every year beyond that, we want to launch our own brands. So the plan is we're going to have a team of A players and it's going to be competitive and we're going to launch 1 or 2 brands a year and the best people on that team will get equity of the brand and they'll come in as a client, but obviously they'll have ownership. And the plan is that way, you know, they get a chance to make money beyond a salary as well. They get a chance to be an owner. It also means that, you know, the goal is for us to be able to retain talent in that way. There might be another agency that's bigger. They might have bigger clients or you might find them more interesting. It depends on your interest. But what you'll get here versus other agencies is the chance to own your own brands and really not just grow a brand and say you was a part of it, but actually be a part of it long term. And so that's the goal for us.
So tying in ownership and performance to the team members who are involved in scaling the in-house brands.
Yeah, think of this as a machine that can grow brands, and then instead of just growing other people's brands, we'll also grow our own brands.
Yeah. What kind of challenges do you think you're going to face with that?
All of them.
It's a great concept, man, and I think it's very achievable. We've already had a conversation, you know, with our equal kind of mindset on that. Just going back to when we sat down and we spent a whole day together, I'll be keen. Look, the notes that you brought together, did you just summarize like what we went through and throw it into ChatGPT to build that out into explanations, or did you write those down?
Did the whole thing, man. No, you gotta understand and get your value. So yeah, obviously we came here. It was a brainstorm.
What were the key takeaways from that day? Like not all of them, but what were the key takeaways for you from our strategy day?
It was less about what you told me and it was more about what I was able to see you do. So we went for a Nando's and you pulled up like, we've just signed this client and you're in Nando's here with me, and seeing that is possible is good, and seeing how you operate with the team. I think we was heading in the direction of creating an agency similar to your last one. You're building it a little bit differently now. So to get that perspective and see you and the actions that you take and how you interact with the team, that was the main takeaway. The knowledge was great, don't get me wrong. There was certain parts about our processes and how we can be a bit more efficient and communicate with clients, but there's no replacement for seeing how somebody operates and being able to take that as inspiration as well.
I appreciate that, man. Bro, thank you for coming on, man. It's been amazing to sit down. You're the first Start and Scale podcast guest of all time. You can hang that on your wall.
Let's go.
You can hang that on your wall.
I'm out getting a t-shirt. What's the
another one?
Yeah, another one, mate.
You know what? We've run out of stock, of notepads, t-shirts. These caps are nearly done. I need a restock, bro.
Yeah, I think I've got
genuinely, I think there's a lot of value in what you've spoken about today. You've got great experience, man. There's almost like a natural progression for you on your journey. And then it's like you're almost going back home now to brand building alongside your agency. So I just want to say thank you, bro.
Appreciate you, mate. Thank you for having me on.